frog and you put it in a pot of hot water, it's immediately going to jump out because it notices right from the go, this is not where they want to be. But if you put a frog in the water and at first it's comfortable and it starts to slowly get hotter and hotter and hotter, they might not notice the change, or if they do, they adapt to it. And then it gets to a point where they no longer can adapt, and now it's too far for them to turn around. So you have to help even kids understand that you're not always going to see the abrupt red flag. It's going to slowly change, and if that's the case, you need to stop it right then. You need to turn course immediately so that you don't end up in a situation like the frog where you can't escape the water anymore.
Now all of us are frogs, and we're being boiled.
And when they took power, the first thing they do, action number one, take the guns away.
I said in the same thing over there with the communist country. When they first took over, they control your stomach by not giving you food. And then when they had totally control your stomach, and they will tell you exactly what to do.
And if this country is going to collapse, is no place in this world to go. And this is going to be the end of our freedom.
The Art of War is it's a book that is recommended that all Marine Corps officers read at the basic school when they're learning how to be a platoon leader and actually engage in warfare. And it essentially teaches you different strategies to
I served in Vietnam. I went back again in Vietnam in 75 and in 76. I did the Maguez mission. I was in Beirut in Lebanon in 79, and I was in Desert Storm.
Yeah, Desert Storm caught us all by surprise. My battalion was deployed to Europe. We had operated in the Tunisian desert and in the Moroccan desert. And when Saddam invaded Kuwait, it caught us all by surprise. We were immediately returned back to the States, and we were then to train for a mission to be inserted over the beach into Kuwait City if the breach had gotten stalled or failed. So we had a very intense period of training. In fact, I kept my battalion fully tactical for 130 hours, not realizing I had trained them 30% too long because we won that war in 100 hours.
One of the things that you learn in the military is that amateurs talk strategic, professionals talk logistics.
The supply chain that was broken was their ability to continue the fight with munitions and to continue the fight with equipment.
We do that because we want to cut off all kinds of resources that you could give a population, whether it be militarily or civilian support. Militarily, so you can reduce the resistance from the part of the individuals there, and civilian-wise, you're cutting off their food chain to make them more submissive and make them comply with what you're doing.
We negated their fuel.
Well, mostly what I saw is we stopped them from refueling them by blowing them up.
If you're from a military standpoint, you hit the fuel line so you can prevent the military vehicles from actually doing any kind of maneuver. You saw that in Ukraine when all those armored vehicles were lined up. They didn't have any fuel and they're waiting for fuel, and also made them a more easy target. So that's why you want to do that. But on the civilian side too, you're preventing the civilians from moving about and basically mobilizing and doing anything. It's control over the civilian population.
We also took over the radio stations and cut their lines of communication.
Yeah, obviously when military goes into any kind of an area, that you want to immediately take over the media so you can get word out to the people in regard to what you're doing and what they shouldn't be doing. And again, that's a matter of control. It's also a means for you to start pouring in propaganda, you know, in regard to what you're doing. part of the start of the brainwashing process for the population that you're going to start expanding on. So they need to take the control of not only the print media, but the visual media, TV, radio, and then nowadays the social media.
What we did with the propaganda is we were more interested in being perceived by the Iraqi people as liberators. And what we did not have any beef with them. We really didn't even have beef with his mainline units. Our desire, for example, the 51st Mechanized Infantry Division, which was in Basra, we were basically looking to have them capitulate. Ultimately, if we could defeat these units just with our overwhelming speed and disruption, we could actually bring them into our coalition after we got rid of their leaders and multiply our forces. So our propaganda was dropping leaflets telling people, if you are just an uninvolved civilian, you don't have any weapons, any troops harbored in your house, put something white, whether it's a flag, a sheet, your long underwear, put it on your roof, and we won't bomb you.
We caused a disruption in communication and their policies with what we did.
That's part of, PSYOPs, psychological warfare, where they do that to get people to buy into what's going on, make them less of a threat. Yeah, that's part of the process too, taking over a country, taking over a society or a population.
And the other thing is we just created havoc so that the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing.
That's to turn people against one another, in case you got any element within a population that is willing to resist. Not only do they have to worry about who they have to resist against, they got their own people that they need to worry about, so that they want to cause strife and divisions amongst the population. And to basically conform to what needs to be conformed to on the part of whoever's taking you over, and make you comply, make you weak, and prevent you from doing anything outside what they expect you to do. So they'll destroy the wealth, and make you feel vulnerable.
Well, yeah, their ability to supply their troops was cut off. Their troops were stranded, and to our basically underlying moral values, rather than taking them prisoner, rather than capturing and killing them, we basically opened a pathway for them to escape. And so they were basically shut off. There would have been no way to resupply them, and we would have had to deal with all of these prisoners, which we didn't want to do. And so we let them move forward. And you saw the retreat that took place back up into Iraq at the end of the 100 hours.
It's control. Take control of you, limit where you can go, and also it'll limit you and who you can go and coordinate with, or who you can meet with. And that's they want to isolate you to one area of a country or a community, so that you're more easily managed. So that's what the limiting of the transportation is all about. Diseases, biological warfare or chemical warfare has always been used, and you can see during Iraq, Saddam Hussein used it. It's to control populations or elements of the populations, or it's there to wipe them out. If they do it with the military, it weakens your military force, makes your military force less capable of responding to situations, and makes them less ready to respond. So that's why they use chemical and biological weapons. The obvious reason one to disarm the citizens is so that they can reduce any kind of resistance, and possibly have to deal with guerrilla forces. They want to take your arms away so that they can limit any type of resistance and any civilians pushing back. It's about control. Like a savior, create a problem, and then you come in and act like you're solving that problem. And makes the individuals who basically can't think past the tip of their nose think that you're the solution and you're not a threat.
victory in Desert Storm was the result of considerable planning and considerable preparation of the battle space, understanding where the enemy was coming from, building up the logistics support, building up the troops, building up the ammunition and weapons, and then moving quickly by surprise to envelop the enemy. We basically got the frog to jump into the pot when he came into Kuwait. We then sat there and boiled him for about 30 days with an air war. We then attacked and turned the heat up on his group, and then we allowed him to jump out of the pot before he was completely boiled, and eventually we had to come back and finish the job. Initially thinking this was a good thing, we're going to bring peace and stability to the world by bringing, the communist China into the world market. It has backfired on us, and what they have done is they have said, no, you're the frog, and we're basically going to slow boil you. We're going to co-opt you. We're going to get you so dependent upon us that we don't really even have to turn up the heat and boil you. Eventually you're just going to sit there and drown.
Nobody's more scared of what's going on than the Cuban Americans, because we have nowhere else to go. This was the last hope. Europe is upside down, and it's awfully scary what's going on over here, because not only happened in Cuba. I was born when the Cuban Revolution happened, even though we hear the story from parents and grandparents. But I was alive when in '99 when Hugo Chavez took power. And I was actually in the U.S., and a lot of the Venezuelan friends that I had, they told me the same thing that the Americans are saying right now. That would never happen there because we got oil and it's a different country. And look at Venezuela right now. People could say that it's probably worse than Cuba.
I mean, it's hard to picture United States like that, but that happened to Venezuela before. But before, nobody could even think that Venezuela will become a communist country, and see what happens.
What happening in Vietnam is nobody ever thought that the country would fall. We would lost everything we had. They didn't know it was coming. And the same thing here with this country. People didn't think that what they are losing today, piece by piece, bit by bit, and will someday will be everything that we lose.
And again, this is one of Sun Tzu's principles, is you hold what you have until it is safe to attack. And if you can attack in sufficient numbers, you surround your enemy, because you're trying to break the enemy's resistance without really having to fight every man against every man.
I've seen quite a bit of similarity between Vietnam back then and America now, because people tend to acknowledge or tend to don't care what is coming, because it is happening in our everyday life, but it seems like either people don't care or they don't think that would be a serious problem.
Yeah, it's the same thing. I used to go to the store and I have a card, and I was able to get food based on how many members has the family. You weren't allowed to get more. If I was craving for another piece of cheese, I wasn't allowed to buy this. And now I can see that when I went to the store and I wasn't able to get a water or a toilet paper, was a box per person, I saw right away the similarity. The same thing was happening right now. It's like a movie, it's developing like a movie to me.
I pretty much live in the U.S. longer than I live in Cuba by now. And it's scary, the changes that I'm seeing, because it's awfully familiar to me. A lot of people think that the changes are where we are capitalism today and socialism tomorrow. That doesn't work like that. It's usually gradually, little by little. They change one thing today, another thing tomorrow, and Next thing you know, you were deep into, the communism, socialism, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, in Vietnam, in my country, 40 years ago, the government used food to control people, to control your stomach by food. So you will have so much food every day to sustain your life. And then the next day, if you don't comply, you had no food.
I feel the fear because I live without toilet paper and I can see it, baby formula, like paper towel, diapers and everything. And I think, I don't know, I feel like it's something the government has with the women, and I don't feel safe anymore. Imagine to start a family and to think about it, to extend my family, and if I'm not gonna be able to have a milk and I'm not gonna be able to find on shelves the baby formula, how I'm gonna be able to be a mom, to have a family, to extend it, and to live like a decent. This scares me, and I'm sure most of the women, they're scared. And this, like, it's stopping the process to be a family in this country. Looks like they rip apart of us.
In United States, we have experiencing a lot of lack of products for women like tampon or even paper toilet, basic products. And that's exactly what happened in Venezuela a long time ago. I think that's a way for the government to control the people. Well, Venezuela was a prosperous country. There was all kind of products that you can want on the shelf. But then everything started changing, and it was very difficult to find anything on the supermarket. And the government started controlling everything. It was even to get the basic product, people have to do huge line all day long to get it back from the government with the basic food like rice, meals, things that people take for granted. That's a way for the government to control people. That's just that, a way to control. They want the people to depend on the government for everything.
That's exactly what's going on in our country today.